This is quite like the highest coaching session I've ever done now. So I had
Oh,
6.5 or 6K a little while back. I mean, I personally enjoy very much the higher the MMR. I don't want to, flame all the people who sign up that are low MMR, but it just gives me, the higher up MMR you go, the much more specific I'll have to be to help you with anything. I look forward to this. You're 7.2 now, you said?
yeah. I had this really nice streak like at the beginning of summer, and I hit 7.8, and I was really happy. And then just kind of crashed back down to the 7.2, 7.4 range, and that's where I'm stuck right now.
Banana slam jam.
Okay, gotcha. So obviously you're NA. You're mid, right?
Yeah.
Okay, confirming I understood that one. And then how many times have I played with you?
Plenty. There was a more so when I wasn't as good. It'd be like those games where you get like rank 1Ks in your game, and I'd probably be in there. Recently, the main game I remember is you were Slaughter and absolutely destroyed, and I was Void Spirit mid, and I had to do virtually nothing. I ganked top once, and then you just like carried the game. It was
Nice. Well,
very
that's
nice.
so you have an overall better impression of me. I guess you signed up for my coaching, so that's probably.
Oh no, I like have a great impression of you. I do coaching myself, and I get a lot of like my style from you. Not to like steal your shit or anything, but
Hey man,
like the
that's
your
what we all do anyways, right? We just see what people do and try to
yeah.
figure it out for ourselves. So nothing wrong with that. Sorry if I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No worries. I was saying like I'm an education major or a minor, and like just the style that you teach in is like very like up to date with like new teaching methods. So I like just really admire it and think you're doing a good
I
job
mean,
with
how
it.
do you think I learned how to teach, man? I just had good teachers along the way and paid
Exactly.
attention. So Wind Ranger is not a hero. So whenever I do mid coaching sessions, I know a decent amount about the heroes and like about the matchups. When I say a decent amount, I guess like to my own horn or anything. But like compared to the average player, I know a shit ton about the heroes. But like
Right,
I
right.
don't know like the niche matchups and like every little thing you're supposed to do in lane and like every tiny thing. But I'm gonna talk about like the general game plan for you because I feel like sometimes I'll watch a mid player. You said like you had a tough time against the CNCs of the world. So if I see like a very glaringly obvious mechanical thing you could have done better or whatever, I'll talk about it. But a lot of it comes down to when I watch CCNC, even when I've been playing in EU, it's the movements around the map for me that define mid laners. And whether or not that's just farming or whether or not that's actually killing people. Um, I think it's like a mentality that NA has really wrong. Like people just do it
I'd agree.
poorly.
Yeah.
Maybe there's like two or three mid laners in NA I'm generally excited to have on my team. The rest of them are a complete, crapshoot of whether or not they're just gonna carry me or whether or not I'm gonna be getting chased to tier twos while they're jungling. It's kind of you never really know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, hopefully today I get an opportunity to try to mold you to think differently. Not
Yeah.
saying you obviously have a good attitude, but I'm probably going to go a bit longer on this session just because I think people out there will very much appreciate the more higher level content. But
Fantastic.
um, so I
If I
well,
may
we'll just
interject.
you go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I was gonna say the based on what you kind of said, I find my problem to be that rotation phase, right? Like if I get like stomped in lane, like shit stomped by CCNC, it's like okay, I can like rewatch the replay and like pick apart the laning phase. I find that it's like the post laning phase where I kind of agree with you, where it really makes or breaks like the mid play. And so like in this game, for example, I'll find a lot of times I'll do well in my lane, and then I'll kind of like screw up that next part, right? Like I'll like kind of like die a few too many times, and it kind of like the feeling I get is like I win the lane and then I do bad rotations and all of a sudden this guy that I beat in lane is like ahead of me in like levels and net worth and I'm like, oh, how did that happen?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of my overall feeling of what my loss is.
It's funny because the reason why I've been doing more mid lane or not mid lane, off lane is because as a carry, there's like a choice between when to farm, when to fight, and it's mostly like you're farming and then sometimes you fight. And it's like okay, that's the mentality of carry and like being ready to fight and when to fight, all that kind of shit. But as an offlaner, it's pretty much like okay, you're participating in the game where are you participating in the game? It's not, like when do I fight or not. It's like, where am I fighting? And the cool thing about Offlane is that the position requires you to make space, obviously. Like, you're the guy that's supposed to be aggressive for your other two cores. However, if your other two cores don't need you to do that, meaning like, say you won mid and you're a DK and you're pressuring the tower, and the optimal play at the end of the day is for me to play as like efficient as possible as an offlaner because I'm not needed, then I can do that but it stems from me understanding my other two cores. Like, that's what it stems from. Like, the games where I think the offlane throws the fucking game is when I'm like I'm not a greedy core, but I am a core that needs participation from my offlaner. Like, I'm a drow that, needs a little bit of protection and enabling, and the guy goes Midas. It's like, fuck.
Yeah.
So in the mid lane, it's kind of similar, but, instead of considering both carry and mid, you consider your carry, right? Because the greediness of your play, the problem I think in NA, I know I've paused at mid lane or whatever, but the problem with NA is like most mid laners, they're incapable of like thinking about their carry. Like, yeah, it's not that I want you to like suck your carry's dick or anything like that, but I need you to consider their play when we talk about your like mid-game rotations, right? Like, we're not talking about your laning stage or whatever, but we're not talking about your items. We're purely talking about, like, from offlane, it's a lot about items. But for you, it's a lot about just what you do with your hero. Considering what you pick, how you play it. Like, that's why I've been flaming the mid TA picks in my games and in the drafts I've seen in the tournament. It hasn't fucking won. I haven't seen it. They have, like, a Spectre carry, and I'm like, this Spectre's going to have no net worth. Why? Because the guy that last picked mid is, jungling at, 9 minutes in. So, with this in mind, we're going to look at these rotations and specifically talk about some very exact reasons for why you do what you do or why it works. And we're going to, hopefully, like you said, with the teaching method, talk about it in a general sense rather than in a, hey, this is what you should have done here sense. So we'll see how it plays out. So far, the lanes looked pretty good, but as we said, I am going to talk about it a bit, but not too much. I expect like if you're 7K mid laner plus, like usually the overall mechanics are fine. There's always things that could be better. Let's see here. Is there a reason to hold on to the ward, by the way? Just curious.
So there isn't. I actually think I die because of it here. I usually just place it on the high ground hill, like up and to the left on the other side if there's a ganking 4. And I think I just like zoned out and completely forgot about this game. I ended up getting arrowed and because of it. So
gotcha. This is something that you've probably considered, and maybe just knowing you can just say, hey, I already know that. But like, I see you like holding hostage a bit with this range creep. You were like pump faking it as he's running away and stuff. What I see like the really good mid laners do is they attack their own range creep the second the one creep that's dying to the tower is dying to the tower. Because then it's at that point the guy's like, oh, I want to go for the range because he's denying it. Oh, I missed both. Shit. It's like, I see that a lot. So I saw that you were messing with him about the range creep, and I think that like that's where the mid lanes really come in like the last year or two, is where people just like, they know you want that creep, they're just fucking with you the entire time. But like, I really think it's impossible to deal with. Like, they're gonna get one creep, right? You're forcing them to get one creep or not. Maybe you already kind of know that mechanic, but you didn't use it as much as I would have liked it there. So just curious.
Gotcha.
Whenever I play against the best mid laners, it's like every single creep is a battle. I even lane against S4 in the off lane in EU, and that guy, I mean, he's a mid laner, right, in terms of the way he lanes and stuff. So I was like, wow, I have to work for every fucking creep against this guy. So I like the back and forth. Okay. Oh, I see.
That's what I'm talking about.
There's the Marana arrow. I see. Yeah, whenever I'm against tiny Marana,
I love those hill cliffs.
Yeah, the hill wards, like a ward on their side of the map, like it could be top if you think you need like, the vision high ground or whatever, but that is something where these are fundamentals that I almost always assume people are aware of, or at least have heard of, but doing them every single game is like a big deal. So you said you didn't need, or
sure.
like you said you talked about the ward and everything. If you are like knowledge like that is the knowledge I flame people for, because it's like, dude, didn't you know as like a mid laner if you played every fucking game? Yeah, it's like it's a Murano. Like the odds of him coming mid some point in the first 5 minutes is like decent, pretty like decently
I know
high.
that guy like every game, bro. Like every time that guy plays Mirana, he's always mid. I know that guy too. It's annoying,
but that's the kind of shit that avoids a crucial death in the lane, right? And it's like if he smokes or like takes some super awkward angle that misses your ward, then that's different. Like
good on him.
But like the shit happens. But if you just didn't place this ward, that's the kind of stuff where I go, okay, man, like I tell this to myself all the time. I'm like, I fucking knew I was gonna die there, and I still went there. And it's like that discipline is actually really important. The consistency of listening to your own knowledge, listening to your own experience, and applying it with exactly everything you're doing in mid lane. Like people underestimate at the highest level. There's little things that just make or break the lane. I recently made a video about in the side lane how the guy didn't block the big camp, and we completely got destroyed because he didn't block the big camp against a matchup that specifically, or he got destroyed. I was offlane. That specifically needed to block the big camp. It's like, that shit decides lanes, man. It really does. If the other guy is doing it and you're not, it does. So this is an example of that from mid lane.
And the higher you go, the more picky you gotta be with these things.
Oh, it's just like if the guy does it and you don't, it's just like that's when it becomes more and more important. As I say, like at the lower MMRs, if the guy's also not doing it, you may not see the negative impact that you have from doing it. Okay. So here's what I see in EU, okay? So, right here, they push the lane. And this Wind Ranger sees the Slardar, right? So you see Slardar underneath his own tower.
Right.
And the SF just walked, like, you saw with the power shot that he's underneath his tower. Right. They fucking wind run up this hill and get to this run. Like, as fast as possible. And what I'm just going to use this for like future pretense is like if I talk about EU, here's the general philosophy I've seen, and it's palpable if you're going to apply it in your team settings, okay? I look at what they do. And yes, there's farming, right? They hit creeps too. I get it. But if you were to ask yourself, where is the most aggressive, relevant, what I mean by relevant is like there's something to gain by doing it, play I can make on the map at any given point, like based on my strength of my hero, like the comparison here would be like, what's better? Is it to run for that bounty rune? Is it to run at this SF underneath this tower? Like is it to steal this jungle camp here? It's like, what is the most relevant, aggressive play I can make at all times? Because like that's all it is. It's just this back and forth like crazy pressure that comes out from people. And in NA, it doesn't work if your teammates aren't doing it. Like, it just doesn't work. But as a mid laner, you actually dictate this a lot. Like, I would say if there was one role that wasn't doing it, that would be the most detrimental, it would be mid lane. So I want to talk, like, this is the kind of stuff where it's like, don't underestimate the importance of giving them little things, okay? Like, just taking their camp, taking their bounty rune over there, like, even just forcing the Mirana to, like, leap twice to go get that bounty. What else are you doing with your time? Like, what else? The next 10 seconds, what are you spending there, right? Make the Mirana prove that she was at that rune at the exact 5-minute mark, right? Like, people mess up, or people are, like, 2 seconds late. Like, it happens in the highest of MMRs, right? So, I've just noticed where, like, if I miss a rune by 2 seconds, I fucking miss it. Like, in EU, I miss that rune. I don't get it. So, it's something that I want you to think about. Like, that's the first example. Very minute, but 4 or 5 of these small little inefficiencies add up a lot. Like, was this fucking with the SF really worth not going for a bounty rune? Right?
Right, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Worst case scenario, you don't get the bounty rune. Like, based on if you saw the Slardar. If Slardar's missing, on the other hand, it might be a bit different, because you might walk up a hill into a Slardar stun in a Mirana arrow, That's why I pointed out the Slardar being in lane.
Yeah, I think my plan here, these pot shot arrows, was just kind of like weaken them up for this inevitable gank with the javelin and the ulti. Not javelin, just ulti.
He was full health for that.
He just popped the salve, like he just got.
Oh, I see. Okay, so your idea
so-
was that you knew you would be aggressive at level 6 and to
Yeah,
to
so
play
I was just
accordingly.
shooting out power shots and.
Okay,
just sending
gotcha.
power.
No, that aspect makes sense.
But,
So
like,
I don't
way,
want to
right,
like
right,
I don't want to
okay.
take I don't want to take away from that choice. Then, you know, like if anytime somebody has like a conscious decision that they made, I'm good with that. You'd be surprised how often, even in the highest bracket, I'm like, there's no way that guy was consciously thinking about whatever he was doing there. I want you to be confident in that kind of stuff when you're in the middle of the game. I think that's really important. As long as you feel like, hey, I knew I was doing this for this reason. If it just doesn't work, great. But I need you try. It sounds weird, and I'm not trying to say you're not, but I need you to be as open-minded as possible to what is actually important in the game of Dota. Like,
Right.
I want you to be confident in what you think is good and make decisions aggressively accordingly. Like you said, you know, I wanted to make a move when I was 6. I thought if I was harassing him down as much as possible prior, that was great. But a lot of people, and myself included, it took me up until about the last year, honestly, to feel like if I saw something happening, I would 100% question exactly why it's happening. Like I would go in with humility in the sense of I've never really seen this. What is he actually trying to accomplish? And like figuring it out by, you know, watching closely and trying to, you know, theory craft exactly why he did what he did, rather than saying I wouldn't have done that. That's not my play style or whatever. That's kind of how I used to write it off. I'm like, I would rather just farm the creep camp here or some shit. So for you, like right there, I can see the pressure. And the way I look at a lot of mid laners' view on this pressure and aggression is how do I fuck over the enemy mid? But a lot of people don't realize heroes like SF, unless they get a rune, they don't actually participate all that much. Because if they're not getting the rune, they usually don't have mana to farm and fight, right? I don't know. How do you play? Do you play a lot of SF? Or enough SF?
It's enough, yeah.
Okay, so you would agree that like if you're not getting runes, you're probably not farming and fighting, right?
Yeah, I think a great example of that is Storm Spirit as well, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like you're using your mana to either farm or fight. You can't do both.
Yes, exactly. So that's the kind of shit that right there, I'm pretty sure you're aware of, but probably does not dictate your decisions very often. So like when it comes to the game itself, if the enemy mid laner fits like that type of description, the best way to fuck the map is to just every single time you can think of that the enemy team's movement would be influenced by you without like you losing your tower, you know, all the fundamentals of that shit. That's the kind of moves people make in EU. Because they're moves that don't, if they don't work, still accomplish something. Like they, you know, like they had to, like say top lane was being aggressive and you just walking there forces the Slardar to stand here for 15 seconds, you know, and in the meantime, all you missed was a potential medium camp. You know, it's like as you know what I'm saying? Like Wind Ranger's not an SF. She's not a Storm, right? She's not going, if you just go trade jungle camps with these heroes, you're not going to win out, right? Like that's what I mean by, you could be farming a camp, but if people are content farming a camp against a hero that just does it better than you, that's different. But however, if you think, you know, for whatever reason you've seen a ward top and like all these options I've talked about are just completely off the table, a hero like Wind Ranger, she can hit creeps. Like I don't want you to ever feel like, you know, I'm telling you can't, but that's the kind of stuff. Right? Go ahead.
Oh, good. I didn't interrupt you. It's like that mentality of like you only jungle if it's the last thing you can do.
Yeah, that is like like that's the way I talk to 4Ks, right? But for you, I want you to think like, man, you know, like if I do this, what does that offlane Slardar and Mirana have to do the second I walk top? And if that doesn't work, you know, how much am I missing exactly? And you know, so right now we're being aggressive. The reason why I even mention like the offlane a lot rather than the carry is because until Javelin, you probably don't threaten Jug all that much. Your offlane, you have an offlane Arc Warden?
ET.
I see. He rotated top and Arc Warden's. Okay, I see. Yeah. I just looked at your lineup and I didn't think it really threatened Jug all that much. But
I'd agree with that.
I also thought that like if you're invading SF, you're probably invading his triangle. So if you're invading top, it's like two birds, one stone there. So that's why I kind of thought more so about top than bottom. However, okay, I'll just keep playing the gameplay out. So the Tiny's doing a good job helping you out.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
We're getting a lot done in this mid lane. And let's see. So
Arrowed.
Yeah, you got arrowed again.
Yep. It's like deaths like these that I feel like really stifle these games, where I feel like I had a good start, and then like my aggression gets stopped after like 2 deaths, and then I get kind of lost. You see what I mean in a bit. Like I just like start trading kills, and then Jug SF kind of just ends up getting more than I do. Like this death, like I'm trying to be aggressive and invade areas. Obviously bad walk uphill, no vision. But...
Okay, I've got an interesting perspective for you.
Okay.
Just because I know this, like, I'm almost certain this wouldn't even occur to you. So, my question would be, like, if the SF has help, is that a hero that is scary to you? As a Wind Ranger here?
No.
Like, if he has, like, stuns and slows around him, SF doesn't scare you? Okay. So
I meant like if I see the Jakiro, I'm not gonna get hit by Ice Path. Was how I was visualizing.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is like if you're laning. Okay. We're talking about mid-game rotations now, right? That's what we're talking about. So I need you to try to envision the game in like 4 or 5 small vacuums. Okay, like and each one is like a permutation of heroes on the enemy team. Like how many of them are there, right? Like that, like and if you're in an area of the map and it's Jakiro Jug, how scared are you?
I'm pretty scared.
You think Jug can kill you?
I think with the low of a wind run and the slows, I think yes.
But what I'm saying is, wouldn't Jakiro have to like dual breath you, and you'd have to be forced to wind run, and then Jug would have to catch up to you by the time wind runs out?
Yeah.
You're not gonna die to those 2 heroes, are you? Like,
right.
Unless you're just stupid, you're not gonna die to those heroes. Another example would be like Slardar SF. Like maybe they could be annoying to you, but there's no way to really catch you in the first place. But then I talk about like these heroes threat on you. It's like yes, Slardar SF. If you get stunned by Slardar, would absolutely kill you. So like in terms of that, like what's the condition for how far up in the lane, how far up on that part of the map you can be? Can you wind run to try to find somebody? It's like what spellcasting can you use that doesn't allow the Slardar SF to potentially kill you? But I'm just talking about every hero in the game. So I look at their course, okay? And I think of Wind Ranger, so this is how I approach heroes. I don't play Wind Ranger very often, but I do play against it a decent amount. Against right-clickers, you feel like a god, It's like they try to walk at you and right-click you, and you push Wind Run, and they're like, hey, fuck. And like against like ranged heroes with nukes and shit, it can sometimes just burst you. It's also very annoying to play against like gap closers, like the Storms of the world.
Quaps.
Yeah, Quaps, exactly. Like ranged people who aren't countered by your mobility of Wind Run, and their damage isn't mitigated by it. So, okay, with that in mind, what core would you, like, asking yourself right now, if you just were in his lane, what core would be annoyed by you?
I would say Slaughter and Jug.
Okay, so
SF's just gonna raise the wave and go back to doing his thing.
Yes, and if you go mid, what exactly are you going to do when you get there?
Essentially just counter shove the wave.
Okay, right? Who else on your team can do that?
Rubik, Tiny.
Literally anybody.
All the above. Yeah.
Literally, or Gordon. Literally anybody. So this is the kind of shit that mid laners fuck up, dude. You are the most you're the highest level guy on your team. You're supposed to be having impact right now. You're not a hero that farms. Yeah. And you're putting yourself in a position on the map that is not as aggressive as it possibly could. The reason why I talk about this is if you go mid and do that, and SF does his thing, think about Jug, Slardar, Jakiro, Mirana. How does that movement by you affect them?
If I'm chilling in the mid lane?
If you're doing the mid lane trading with SF, he's pushing, you're pushing.
Then they're going to have pretty free reign. If I'm just...
I'm asking you, like, how does it affect them? Like, what do they... Like, what does that make them do in response? you are kind of answering it, but I want to see if you can give a different perspective here. Like, you
Well,
said free
I
reign.
would-
Like, they just don't give a shit.
Yeah, like they could go top, they could go gank me,
Yeah,
tower,
yeah. Like
do
they,
whatever.
like what you're doing doesn't dictate what they do at all,
Yeah.
and that's the problem. That's
Okay.
that's the problem. Like, I have realized so recently, like this is super recently, I maybe last few months, that if I like the players I hate playing against the most is when he just shows up in my lane and I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this? Like, if I'm a jug and there's just a Wind Ranger right clicking me, I guess I'm
It's
leaving.
annoying.
I guess I'm leaving, or guys, can we gank this fuck? Like the equal, like the status quo of you sitting in Jug's lane and just clicking him. Like, what's the worst that's gonna happen? Like, two people show up and you win run away? Like that's the worst case scenario, right? Like that. So, on the other hand, you see a Jug over here, where he is, and you're walking up a hill blind, right? Like, that's a scenario that could backfire, because what if Jakiro and Mirana are both right here, and you get caught out? I would say Jakiro and Mirana are not enough. Like, if Jug was all the way, if you saw him in vision, like, all the way over here, or maybe you don't see him here, but, like, you can usually deduce based on what you see here that he's somewhere.
He's doing the shove and
the shove and farm, right? Yeah. So this walking up the hill to me is pretty nuts. It's like, why not walk this way or even walk this way?
Okay.
So this is an example where I want you on this part of the map, but I want you to think exactly how you're going to do it. Exact approaches, like angle of approach, what abilities you can use prior, what abilities you need, like do you need your ult, all that kind of stuff. But if you go to this Jugs lane, one of two things is going to happen, or I guess I'll say one of three things is going to happen. The opponent is not going to respond, and you just bully him away. Two, they're going to respond with like 2 or 3 heroes trying to,
shove me back out.
Trying to make you fuck off. And 3, the Jugs just says, well, I'm out, and TP is somewhere else, right? And at that point, your choice would be to say, okay, did I go to this Jugs lane to bully him, and then that's it? Or did I go to take this tower? Why did I go here? So when I make these type of decisions, I know that's his only choices. Okay, like I really do. Like, it's not that hard to construct those if you're a high MMR player. I have a general idea in the back of my mind exactly what I want to do with each of those. If they rotate, was I just trying to force rotations and I back off and TP mid? Was I trying to force rotations and, call for reinforcements from my team and just shit on them? Or was I, like, if I bully the Jug, like, I'm not a hero that hits towers. I just wanted him to get out of his own safe lane because that sucks for him. He doesn't want to do that. So I'm going to just leave now. Or I'm going to maybe stay and clear a wave, but then go back to whatever I need to do on the map. The thing is, or sometimes I'll be like, well, I know I just ruined this Jug's day. If he TP's top, I'm just going to TP top too. Like, that's what I'll do. Either way, these exact playing out of scenarios is like really important, because eventually it sounds like you're thinking about a shit ton, and it sounds like the game of Dota ceases to be instinct, but it really isn't though. Like, eventually, if you think like that, you just naturally react to whatever they do. It's like they respond, okay, I know I'm backing off. It's like he leaves, I know I'm chasing him. You very much become instinctually responsive to whatever they're doing, and that's the shit that is crazy to me. Like, when it just hit me, like this type of knowledge just hits me like a truck whenever it comes in large heaps and bounds. That sometimes it's somebody saying something, sometimes it's noticing something, sometimes I have to talk it out loud, and I'm like, wait a minute, now that I say it out loud, that kind of thing. But you going back mid has absolutely no impact on the enemy team, and somebody else can do that job for you. This is a time where, honestly, I'm going to make the bold statement in the upper division of NA and say that if mid laners were to take the approach that if their supports aren't taking their wave of XP, to just let that wave of XP go. Fuck that wave of XP. Like, they should be taking it.
That hurts my heart.
I'm telling you it hurts. Okay, I'm telling you it hurts.
It hurts.
It hurts, okay? In NA, okay. So I don't know how much you've watched my pubs, like, in EU, but in EU, like, to be blunt, it's there's bad games. There's bad players. There's people who ruin the game, whatever. But the game quality is just so much higher. Okay, it is palpably like there's just so much shit happening on the map, and I don't feel like I'm forced into doing nothing every game. Like that's what it feels like in an A in a decent amount of games. Okay, and let me just tell you how many random creeps I see dying to towers at like 8 minutes into the game, and like
in EU pubs.
And like 11 minutes into the game. Like nobody gives a rat's fucking ass about those lane creeps, dude. Like, yes, I'm not saying fundamentally speaking that you should like, ignore the effect of lane creeps, okay? Like obviously like if there's nothing else to do and you're farming jungle or, whatever, don't ignore lane creeps dying to tower. But these aggressive movements on the map that are also forcing the opponent to not farm, if you are also missing creeps for that, it's not a bad thing. Like, everyone's missing creeps.
That makes sense.
And that's why, like, it's hilarious, dude. I had an 8-game history with 7 wins, in my profile. All of them below average. Because it's like, the average is based off your GPM and experience per minute. And all the games are below average. Because there's just no creep hitting. Like, people just don't do, like, every creep they take is, like, calculated. It's like, okay, now that I've, like, fucked with the enemy team farming as much as possible, I can get some farm myself. And it's like, if my GPM goes from 600 to 450 doing this, if yours goes from 500 to 300 doing it, like, that's...
It's a win.
That's a win. And that's why in EU, everyone has lower net worths. There's, like, it's pretty noticeable. Like, I'll just be like, wow, I'm level 8 at 15 minutes and the game's not over. It's like, as an offlaner, it's like in an A, if I'm level 8 at 15 minutes, the game's fucking over.
Yeah.
But then I look at the enemy offlaner and he's also level 8. And I'm like, oh. Okay, so this is the kind of thought I need you to get out of your head. Because if there's something you could be doing that is more impactful than that mid creep wave, you just have to let it go. Like, it is so hard, man. Let me tell you, like, It hurts
the heart.
It hurts. But I firmly believe that, like, the reason why supports like this Rubik and Tiny don't take this creep wave is because they are so used to their mid laners doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they have a mid laner who is on the aggressive part of the map and then walks back mid, do you think they're gonna ever go take these creeps?
No.
Right? I 100% believe that the supports in NA have terrible knowledge of the game as a result of the cores playing terribly. Like, I'm pretty certain that that's why. Because in EU, the supports are so great at, like, soaking all the XP and, like, randomly defending towers and, like, making movements. It's because their cores are actually doing shit, so their decisions are relevant, like, on the map. But in NA, supports are pretty much like, scrap for farm wherever you can and, like, maybe sit with another core. Like, that's what they're, like, what's wrong with you and Arc Ward and just being in the same lane here if you're threatening this tower? It's like, now that you threaten this tower, you, as a player, are going to be open up to this whole new world of possibilities of, okay, now that I threaten this tower, what is the enemy team doing with it? Are they trying to threaten 2 lanes at once? Does it look like they're missing and they're going to smoke up and fight us? Like, what are they doing in response to what I am doing? And then it's, like, crazy because you learn to dictate the pace of the game. Like, you are literally dictating what the opponent is doing. Every movement you make, every step you take. No, I'm kidding. You are forcing them.
You.
Yeah. You're forcing them to think about it, right? Like, it's like, how does that apply to me? And it adds up. Like, it's just like, that's what I mean by pressure. It's like whatever you're doing affects their doing, And if you, like, as a mid laner, start doing that, it'll naturally come with everyone else in the game doing that. So this is the first rotation I'm really not a fan of. And anybody watching, right, casual player, would they ever flame the mid laner for walking and clearing mid? It's like, no. But it's like, you win running, obviously, onto their side of the map, that's questionable.
Yeah.
But I think that these are the type of situations where you're trying to get shit done, right? Like, I can see what you're doing, right? You ran aggressively, you're trying to get shit done. This is a lane. Okay. So, I know sometimes this can get redundant, but I want you to think about this.
No worries.
The way I talked about mid lane, right?
Right.
And if you go there, the enemy team doesn't respond, right?
Mm.
So, if you don't actually just kill somebody there, you are literally doing nothing, right?
Right.
And if you go bottom and just force them to move somewhere else or force them to come get you, you don't need to get kills for your movement on the map to have done something. Okay? Do you see that difference there?
I see that.
Even if you aren't fully aware of these level of rotations and stuff, it affects your psyche when you're doing the rotation. Okay? Like, you, in your mind, even if you don't realize it, know you should not be mid here. Like, it doesn't feel right to you. Okay? Like, you're like, I should be getting something done here. And then you run up this hill with wind run and die. Right? It's like, if you take the approach that I'm trying to give you about going bottom and shit, you just know the enemy team's reacting to what you're doing, and you're just going to react accordingly to what they're doing, like in response to what you're doing. But since you're forcing them to react, you're making their movements predictable. You know, you're making them have like 3 or 4 options. You can read those options based on, you know, vision on the map and who's missing. And even if nothing happens in the game, you shifted them. So you're content. Like, you'll notice, like, I've just so many times, if I'm on the right part of the map, I've realized that I'm just doing nothing, but it's still accomplishing something. And I'm like, huh. You know, like, it's kind of like a smoke that if you take control of the map at the 40-minute mark, even if you don't kill anybody, it was a good smoke because you made them scared and they had to go sit in their base for the duration of that smoke. It's like, great, that accomplished something without it working. That's a great smoke. A great rotation is one that just, you don't have to get a kill, you don't have to get a tower necessarily, but if the situation goes right, those are the benefits that you're reaping. And if you do that every single time, you know, suddenly you're just going to get random objectives for free. You know, suddenly, like the tower that would not have died this game is going to die before the 15-minute mark. This is what I mean. So we're going to keep going.
That'll make sense. That makes sense.
Okay. Do you have any questions or?
No, it makes sense.
Okay.
A thing that like stuck with me was like this one. I don't remember what the video was, but you talked about Gunner's gameplay, and you mentioned he was like Void Spirit and just like ran around the map around like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And like that like mindset is something that I've been trying to implement more instead of like the NA farming thing.
Yeah.
And so like that was an example of me like overstepping that in a sense, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah. So, okay. I know I've already said some of this stuff, but now that you mentioned Gunner, okay, so like that playstyle doesn't work if you don't have some semblance of knowing exactly why you're doing it. Okay, so I want you to start training yourself, and it's going to be a learning process for you for sure. But I want you to realize that that's the mindset you need to have, but exactly where you pick to do it and why is very important. Okay, like,
right.
So that's the part where if it doesn't work because you ran up that hill, I need you to try to have that self-critique that I just gave you of, like, you know, why didn't it work here? Like, why do I feel pressured to do shit here when I shouldn't? Where should I have been? You know, if I go here, what would have happened? If I go top, what would have happened? Like, if I TP top, if they run at me as 4, what happens to me? You know, that kind of shit. If you play it out in your mind, you'll start realizing that there's a lot of consistencies, like a lot of results of, like, okay, if I play top, my only concern is I get dove, you know, and that they just commit 4 heroes and my team's forced to respond. It's like, does my team want to respond? Do I die to 4 heroes? Do I defend the tower? It's like, you know, there's a lot of consistencies about what could go right or wrong on each side of the map, right? So top, it's usually about getting dove and shit. Bottom, it's about taking their tower as a potential good thing, but as a potential bad thing, you're just doing nothing there or potentially feeding to a carry that is good against you. Mid lane, it's like, for mid laners, usually I would say mid lane's like there's nothing better for me to do. I'm just going to clear mid and then jungle. Clear mid and jungle. And it's like usually one hero likes to do that in the mid matchups. Like one hero's content with that status quo of both mid laners pushing the lane and jungling. And I never really understood this in the past, like even up until very recently. And I always struggled in mid lane matchups where I wasn't supposed to be the guy farming. Like whenever I was the guy that was supposed to actually make moves, like in this case, you're the Wind Ranger, he's the SF. I would always struggle with these matchups conceptually. I was like, I didn't really understand how I'm supposed to keep up with this guy who's also farming when he just farms faster than me. So, so for you, it's a lot about exactly where you go. And if you have that mentality, okay. So we're not going to get too political here, okay? But I'm glad you have the approach you have. Because at some point, us Americans, us NA Dota players, we have to wake up from this delusion that the way we normally play Dota is even remotely decent compared to the other regions. Okay, like we have to wake up from this. At some point, we're gonna understand that we put our playstyle into competitive against other regions, and they shit on it. Okay, like we have to understand that at some point. So I like your humility about this. And in the short term, I'd almost recommend buying a 7K account. You know, your 7.4K or 7.2K. Just buy some other account where you're trying this at all costs and you don't give a shit about your MMR. Okay, like you're trying to win, right? Like I'm saying, but like nothing you do is influenced by fear of losing MMR in the short term. Because if you change your playstyle like this, you're actually just gonna randomly fuck up. You're gonna like, you know, you're gonna be like, I don't know if this would work, and you're gonna be scared. I think that's a natural reaction of like, I don't want to do something because it's gonna hurt my MMR. And if possible, if you're willing to be open to like just, you know, buying an account about the same MMR as yours, that you just don't give a shit about that you just don't give a shit about its MMR, I think this is the place you try it. Like it's just, that's the perfect opportunity. Where the thing is, when I'm like learning new heroes or like thinking about new concepts, which has been a lot recently, it usually dictates me playing on my Smurf. Because I'm like, okay, I mean, my Smurf's AK, but it's like, I play on my Smurf because it's slightly lower MMR than my main, and I don't care. Who cares? And I just go with my instinct on it. It's like, I no fear. Who gives a shit if I win or lose? I'm just trying to win, but I'm not going to not do something because I'm fearful that it'll cost me the game or whatever. So, or cost me my lane. So just highly recommending that to you, because at least in the short term, when you're like really figuring out for yourself what these type of decisions mean for you. So we're going to talk now about the game we're watching. So, Arc Warden's pushing bottom. We're talking about like the state of the map. We just took a 4-on-4 mid, right? Like there was a big engagement mid. How do I word this? It even happens in an A, like in a good way. When you are pushing this wave mid here, like you see this SF and you're farming these creeps, just name as much that goes through your head right now as possible. Just tell me everything that you can possibly think of.
So I know two heroes are going top. I see Swadar going top, and I know Mirana was going that direction. She'll pop up on the ward. I'm pretty sure at this point I didn't see SF Fuels, and so I just assumed I was safe. Okay. And it's a mid wave to shove, right? Like it's an important wave to shove.
Okay. So I just to confirm we're on the same page, what is the accomplishment of you doing what you're doing here? Like what are you accomplishing here?
Well, now that we're talking about it, it's not much. It's like my MKB timing, but because like I don't even have a wave to go forward with yet.
So I want you to go ahead. So sometimes I'll like overgeneralize and it can hurt. So I want you to always realize that there's like a condition to what I say. But I want you to just drop all thought about getting an item. Okay? Like stop playing your own game of like I make this move to like I'm farming my MKB. Okay? Like I know you're farming your MKB. Like you have it queued up, okay? That's going to happen.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So what I mean by this is like I don't want your decision making. Some of the biggest mistakes I make in the game is when I'm 300 gold from an item or some shit, and I go for a creep wave that I should just never go for because I'm 300 gold from that item, and it's because I let the decision of, or I let the factor of I'm close to an item or I'm working on an item affect what I do at that given moment. Okay, like it's that's the mentality I'm trying to get rid of for you here. A lot of people think this way. Up until very recently thought this way. It doesn't dictate your movement at all. Okay, like it shouldn't, right? Like this whole idea of like how aggressively on the map you can play and shit, and how many plays you can make is affected by the items you have, but it is not affected by how close you are to your next item. It's just like once you get the next item, your decisions are different, right? Do you see the difference there? So when you're mid here, all that matters is I'm trying to push this wave. I know mid lane is super fucking important, and I need to do this in the safest way possible. Because I look at the map right now, I see two heroes running top. Is Arc Warden going to push bottom first, or are they going to push top first?
Arc Warden's gonna push bottom first.
Okay, so what's gonna happen here in my mind is I'm gonna clear this wave, I'm gonna clear the next wave, I'm gonna pick up a rune, and there's gonna be more pressure on bottom than there is on top, right? And at that point, some opportunity, if there's going to be an opportunity, is gonna open itself up right then, right? And until that point, my only purpose for being here is because I know how important mid lane is to push, and I'm gonna push it. And quite frankly, it doesn't save you any time to walk here, right? If you were to stand here, what's deciding your decision here? Like, it's the next wave, right? It's the one at 11:45. That's deciding your wave. And you killing the wave right here as opposed to back here, in this case, because you already took the tower and you're not actually pressuring this area, right? Like, this isn't like you're not going to run into their jungle or, some shit. It doesn't actually accomplish anything to pressure the wave to be here rather than back here. Do you see why?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Okay,
yeah.
So because the pressure itself doesn't do anything, you just need the wave pushed, and you just need to take it as safe as humanly possible. It's like, I don't even care that this guy has a Yules. I've just noticed that if the enemy team has some way of killing me, and they see me in a position to die, they're going to kill me. Like, in NA, that's what I was going to say about NA. Like, they do that pretty well, actually, compared to past years. So it's like, there's just no benefit to being more aggressive on the map right now. There's just none. So, like, it's like the opposite of being not aggressive enough. It's like, if you're not being aggressive enough, you're missing out on potential opportunities. If you're being too aggressive in a way that doesn't matter, even if there's no reason to not be that aggressive, like you said, you didn't know the SF had a Yules, and I thought I could just live here. But it's like, if I don't do anything by playing here instead of on my high ground, then all I'm opening up is a potential opportunity that I didn't think about. That's all that's happening. So I'm like, okay, I'm pushing this wave. How relevant do I need to push this wave? Like, can I be in their face? Or, like, does it accomplish something to be in their face? Or should I just back off? Because when's my next rotation? So you took the tower, and I always think to myself, kind of, what's next? What's my next objective that matters? For you, it's the 12-minute rune. That's all that matters. So every decision I make is going to affect, or is going to lead into me getting that rune. And then I look at the kind of state of the map. And that's why I mentioned, like, Arc Warden pressuring bottom, then pressuring top. It's like, I'm going to be in a state of superior pressure. So I'll probably look to make an aggressive move with that rune. It's like, if it's the opposite, maybe I'm looking to use that rune to counterplay their push, and maybe I'll try to
TP.
Yeah, and I'll try to communicate to my team, hey, like, set up top. I have, I'm getting bottom rune or whatever. But that's why I told you to look at the other two lanes, because that's going to dictate the following 30 seconds after you get the rune. So that's the type of map awareness. People ask me why I look at the map and shit. That's exactly the kind of reason it's important to look at maps. It's more about lane pressure and all that kind of shit. It's like, you obviously understood, like, hey, they were moving top, and you were paying attention, but knowing exactly what that means for you is a big deal. So you get that rune, they're doing this, your Arc Warden's bottom, and you would have just been here, right? Like, that's what.
And now SF has the DD instead of me.
Yeah, and exactly. And then this Jug would be bullied away. You'd be probably taking this tower, bottom. I like that you walked bottom, just because.
That's been a huge change. When I learned about the TP idea of, like, having the option to TP stuff, huge change.
Yeah, because after you go to this lane, are you staying here? Like, after you pressure this tower, are you staying here?
If not one more wave, no.
Yeah, like, maybe one more wave, but it's Arc Warden that's staying here, right?
Yeah.
So that's why you didn't TP, right? Is that the same thought you used? Okay, because that's how I do it. It's like, if I'm going to take an objective, if I plan to stay there, I'll just TP. But yeah, so this exact process is just, 40 seconds later, a tower later, your top tower is dead already, and now Jug's hitting mid. And it's all because of your death mid, right? And it seems so simple. It's like, just don't die. But it's like, you need to understand that you playing on their high ground, as opposed to your own high ground when pushing that wave at 1140, how much did you benefit from doing that, potentially? Like, if you play that much aggressive, how much do you benefit from it? And if it backfires, how much do you lose? Right? Like that's
my mid tower.
Exactly, right? So it's like, that's what I mean by like, controlled aggression. How much is it accomplishing? Like, is this worth it to me to be aggressive here? It's just not, And so eventually you just need, as long as you understand the impact, positives and negatives of each little move you make, you'll start to be able to gauge, like, even if it worked or not for future games. Like, okay, like, last time this worked, but this game it might not because we were pressuring bottom in the other game, but in this game, you know, we're not. So it's not going to work this time or whatever. As long as you understand the whys of how it worked, it'll make your decision-making much crisper. So suddenly the map control for you guys is
Gone.
It's all about you playing around your own mid tower to defend it, rather than you playing around their bottom tower to take it, right? Like, that's what is resulted here. Do you see how that's like the map shift? So now your Arc Warden, maybe it's not your fault directly, but he dies bottom trying to get that tower. We've talked about the importance of this safe lane tower. Just in general, I'm sure you've noticed it over your games if you've paid attention that it just opens up the map, especially for your carry player. And if you take that tower, it's hard to explain exactly to other people, but like the lower MMR players. But if I take that tower, I feel very comfortable farming mid and protecting it as like a useful thing in my time. You know, I don't feel good doing what you're doing here without having that tower. But you don't have another choice because you fed, and you know the map control is like your hero represents most of the threat from your team. So if you're most of the threat and you die, that's like a hugely important death that shifts the nature of map control. It's like if Rubik was defending mid and died, it's like, okay, that's not ideal that he dies, but it's not going to drastically change anything. Okay, so so the tower finally dies. You're running bottom. He TP'd. Yeah, this guy's a dumbass. TPing to his own safe lane. Then he died. Okay. You're TPing. Arc Warden is...
He got trapped up there, and I wanted to help him out. He was kind of stuck, and I thought I could help.
Oh, he got trapped. Like SF was chasing him around.
He was
stuff?
juking in the trees. Yeah.
Let me actually just, out of curiosity, see exactly what occurred here.
Oh, maybe he was safer than I thought.
Did he call this to you, or you just saw it?
He called that he was like getting ganked.
I see.
Like this. Yeah.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
I want to be careful about this. Tell me your thoughts about this TP. Like, you gave me the reason, like, kind of why you did it, but give me your thoughts now that you've done this TP. Give me your thoughts on, like, the state of the game.
I am stuck top with no TP, and my team is dying bottom. Well, they're gonna die in a second, I think.
But, like, okay, so we talked about how you dying mid or whatever drastically shifted the map control, right? So how does you TPing top here change map control aspects of this game?
In the frame that we talked about, it's like I think when I was like stuck in mid, like pushing a wave out, and then you mentioned how like the 4 heroes minus SF could just do whatever they wanted. It seems the same way here, where now
like your influence on the map is gone. Like you just don't do shit here. Like whatever you do in the next 20 seconds, the enemy team is going to be able to predict it, and it's also not relevant to them for the most part. So these are the type of TPs where I understand what you're going for, but how do I explain this?
It was like a bit too trigger happy when I just thought something was happening when it really wasn't.
No, I actually want you to think about this. So like, if you have a Terrorblade farming your own triangle, and he has meta, and he's getting ran at in a similar way that your Arc Warden is now, what would you think is a normal response for a team if that's happening?
If they're running into our triangle,
if they're running into your triangle, your Terrorblade has meta. He's just hitting creeps over there. And
I would want to fight.
You're saying turn on these fucks. Like, we have a Terrorblade, right? Like, fuck these guys up. Why? Like, Terrorblade's the type of hero that is, like, is so much stronger around teammates. And by you playing with him, he's just going to kill everybody. Like, if he's protected. But otherwise, he's just going to die instantly, right? Arc Warden in the game right now. What does his hero accomplish, like, as a hero? At this stage,
he's pushing waves with his ulti.
Okay, and if he dies, what's the result of that?
side waves not being pushed and probably
For what, 40
enemy team
seconds?
Yeah.
It's 30 seconds, 40 seconds. So, this is a really hard concept to explain, actually. Okay, so if he dies, waves don't get pushed. So, if
And they're
waves
probably around
aren't
the tower.
pushed, but your team is like aggressive, what is lost out of that?
If waves aren't pushed and our team is aggressive.
Like, say you guys have kill threat, you're running around the map being aggressive, but your lanes aren't getting pushed. What's the result of that? Like, what's the downside there?
You're gonna take unnecessary tower damage, and you could potentially just be dodged, and enemy could play in those side lanes that are being pushed already.
Okay,
It's kinda hard to
so
visualize it.
potential unnecessary tower damage, but if you have heroes with kill potential, is the SF gonna feel strong to like go hit a tower?
No.
Okay, so the tower damage is like creeps, right?
Yeah.
It's like a catapult. It's not gonna be some fucking
Insane tower.
3 hero siege or whatever. Okay, so if your Arc Warden dies, lanes don't get pushed. So at that point, what effectively I'm trying to say here is you guys aren't getting any objectives, right? Like you're not gonna get anything while he's dead. And if he dies, the main thing that's happening is lack of farm that his hero would otherwise be getting. That seems so simple, but that's literally the impact of his death. Okay, like that's what happens here. But if you and the rest of your team are posturing aggressively on the map, that is the only loss. Do you see that? Like, is he farming anyways? Like, when you TP here and quote-unquote help him, is he farming anyways?
Yes. Wait.
I'm saying, like, right now, like, say he were to have died here to a gank, right? Because he's trapped.
No, he's trapped in the trees or he's dead.
Yeah. You TPing here doesn't change anything. Like, he's trapped, and if they're chasing him... So the difference that I'm trying to say here is when your teammates are getting chased... There's some heroes that, in a certain situation, function way better with you, like, punishing the opponent and forcing them away. Because if you force them away from your triangle, even if they don't die, your Terrorblade's going to use that meta to, like, kill an Ancient Camp and maybe the next one. So, like, you're giving him more farm. But, like, by you coming here, it's almost, like, more likely that the enemy team will just bring 4 heroes here, and now you have a Wind Ranger and an Arc Warden chilling on the same part of the map together, getting ran out by 4 heroes. And then
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's like, it doesn't benefit the map for you to help this guy. Like, this guy's on his fucking own, man. He can figure it out, dude. If a support wants to do it, fine,
sure.
Right? But you are a threat. You control what the enemy team does. They are scared of you, right? Your team, without you, what are they missing if you're gone?
Everything. Like all their damage.
You are the damage. You effectively are neutering your entire team by not being with them. Neutering them. Like, they can't do shit. Like, you had 4 heroes bottom. You guys went from being, like, this potent, potentially burst anybody you want gank squad to them seeing heroes in their face and being like, fuck. And, like, for them, this is the feeling you get as a teammate where you're like, I thought we were strong here. We're all dead. Like, I guess we run away now. So it's like, oh my god, it's like a hard concept to apply in every single game. But this is the type of move where I will have times where I'll have better players on my team, like really high level players, and I'll make a move similar to you did, where I like kind of fucked my own map play to help somebody else, okay? And in their mind, they kind of know this, right? And they're like, why is my Wind Ranger here? They'll be like, why are you here, BSJ? Like, why are you helping me? I remember Gunner said to me one time, his mindset was, there's this one time where I was like mid. We were dire. I was mid, like right here. And it made sense for us to be controlling this area at the time. And we were controlling this area. And Gunner is like a Monkey King, and he's diving their tier 3 down here. Okay? And the result of the play was that he just BKB'd and TP'd out. Like, that was what ended up happening. But I was like, what the fuck? My objective on the map was to control this area, okay? And to, like, protect Roche. That's what we were doing. Like, we were setting up, like, you know, there was that 2-minute window where there's no Roche yet, but we want it when it gets up. So,
Right, okay.
and he said to me, like, something along the lines of, don't mess up your game to respond to what I'm doing. Like, I'm just diving their tier 3, and I know I could BKB TP out. Like, why are you freaking out? Like, do you see like the same the parallel here? It's like, yeah, some shit's happening on the map, but is this your job up here? Like, is this what your hero's meant to accomplish in this game right now? And it's like, no, your hero is not a, like, you are an enabler for your supports, right? That's what you are right now. You are a +1. You are not the guy that, like, helps your carry get protected, because your hero these heroes without your hero are useless. So, it's like, I was a hero that was not very mobile, and I tried to run bottom to help him, and I ended up dying over here. And he just, like, you know, BKB TP'd out. Okay, so it's like, he's like, dude, what are you doing, you know? And I was just like, it felt really uncomfortable to me, right? It's just like to me, I'm like, I don't know why I'm helping him, but what the fuck is my Monkey King doing down here? And then, for you, it's like, I'm sure you're like, I was just trying to help this guy, but what the fuck am I doing here now?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that about the thought that you have, right? It's like, what am I even doing here? So that's, I'm going to leave it up to you to, like, you know, give it in your own words to yourself moving forward from this, but this is how you need to think about your movements on the map, because it's not about who's getting gone on and all that kind of shit. It's all about how you play into the grand plan of your team playing the map. You know, like, where do you fit in there? It's like a situation where I would TP here is if Arc Warden's dying in the trees and your Rubik TP'd outpost. You know?
Okay.
At that point, it's like, okay, your support has said that he wants his +1 top, and he's, like, trying to make, like, his aggressive kill play or whatever is here rather than here. Or, sorry, it's here rather than down here. For me, it's like, I know for a fact that my supports need me for kills here. Like, that's how I've started to think about Dota, okay? Like, I'll be, in this game here, I'll be like, oh, you know, my support, like, if I'm playing Darkseer, I've been learning him recently, I realize what heroes on the map rely on me to do their job. You know, they picked their hero, they're playing the game a way that relies on me ion shelling and surging them. So, you know, as a Darkseer, I'm the guy that's enabling them. Am I dictating their movements? Like, should the clockwork that's on my team feel like he should have to come to me if I'm the Darkseer?
Should the clockwork feel
like, who's dictating the move? Me or Clockwork? If I have a Darkseer and a Clockwork, who's dictating the moves?
Clockwork.
Clockwork is. It's my job to, like, ion shell some creep waves and then go to my Clockwork. Like, it's my, even though I'm the core, right? It is my job to enable him, because his hero dictates where I make plays. So it's like, it's oddly enough here, I know you are technically the one with maybe some solo kill potential, but especially until MKB, that's not necessarily the case. And it's actually your supports that dictate your plays. You should be farming in a way that your supports are enabled by you. Okay? Because the way I think about it is, I talked about earlier, you walking bottom would cause the opponent to react to you, right?
Right.
You TPing top here causes your own team to react to it. Do you see that?
I see what you're saying.
And that is, like, we talk about it as a positive thing that you make the opponent react, right? So it's obviously a negative thing that you make your team react.
I'm making my team run away rather than go
forward. So I want you to think about the impact
of
of your moves on your own team, because it's like, this can be different every single time. Sometimes you're the guy that needs the +1 and he TPs away. So if you're the Rubik here, like, say it just for whatever reason, the role reversal, what would you have to do the second your Wind Ranger TPs? Like, the second you see your Wind Ranger
also
TP.
TP.
Or just run the fuck away. Like, your choice is to, like, make your play top now, or to get the fuck out of here. Like, because you knew, as a Rubik, that your playmaking potential was dictated by this hero on your team, right? So, now that that hero's gone, how does that hero affect me? I can't make any plays. GTFO. You know, like, I do think about how these heroes affect me. It's like, if I see their decision, it's like, if that hero was here, I would have taken this tower. So I guess I'm just here, but I'm not taking this tower. Like that's how I'll think about it, right? I was like, oh, I was gonna pressure here, but since he's not here anymore, I guess I'll just Iron Shell the creep and back off. Like I'm not gonna do anything crazy because without him, I can't be aggressive. What conditions do your teammates open up for you? What conditions do the opponents set for you? These are the type of things that dictate your rotations. This is a if it wasn't clear, this is a potentially game-throwing TP in a good game, like in a good high MMR or a match. Okay, this is game-losing shit. I'm actually telling you, it's if you do this twice in the game and the enemy team's 8K, 9K players, even better because nowadays MMR is inflated, it is over. It's actually game over because the map is just so fucking gone by now. Look at the map now. You have 2 heroes stuck in your own jungle. You're going to have to walk either top or back to mid. The opponent can actually take tier 1 if they're competent bottom. They can just kill that tower. And then they're going to do this move where they sweep across the map. And then you're going to be forced to do this. And then they're going to take a Roche. Because they have Slardar, Jug, SF. That's what's going to happen in the next minute if they're good. That's exactly what will happen here.
I think it is.
So let's see what they do. So they're going to take bottom tier 1, it looks like. Yep, your teammates are going to respond. They're going to sweep the map. Or they're actually going to dive. Eventually, they're going to leave bottom. Whenever they think they have to. They're going to sweep across the map. Starting with the triangle. Yep, they're going to gank you in your own side of the map. Maybe they overextended. But now there's going to be a fight around Roche. Yep. And... oh, they actually haven't taken your mid-tier 1, so usually they'll do that first. Okay. But now, look at the map. This is the overall approach. I ignore Roche. I said what I wanted to say was, or what I did say that was relevant is they took this tower, they eventually made this sweep, and your team's going to do this. Right?
Yeah, no, I got you.
That's the relevant part, right? It's your team just spent the last minute and a half here. Okay? So it's that's all because you TP'd at 16 minutes into the game. So it's it's 19 and a half. I'm trying to show you and everyone watching how impactful that TP was. When I say it's a game-losing fucking TP, I am not exaggerating. 3.5 minutes later, the map looks like fucking ass. And it's because you TP'd at 16 minutes into the game, right? That's why map movements and map control is so delicate, and every little choice you make matters. And against these better players, they're just always in the right place, and they just don't make these mistakes. I've noticed in my games, if I don't fuck the map like that, I actually just win games. Maybe I'm not going to win them all, shit happens or whatever, but I'm never the guy that's I've actually prided myself in doing this. I'm not going to be the guy that ruins my team's game plan by doing whatever I do. I'm just not going to ruin it. And it's as a carry, it's a bit different. As a mid laner, it's a bit different. As an off laner, it's a bit different. But for you, it's a lot about, oftentimes in this meta at least, you're gonna, if Wind Ranger's not necessarily meta, but she's fine, you're gonna be a Wind Ranger or a Void Spirit or a Storm or an Ember. These are the heroes we're seeing mid right now. They're all about being that me plus supports kill people, me plus another core kills people, and we bully them around the map, and we make them move around. So that's what the mid laner is gonna do. And for you, anytime that you're not playing properly, it's you're gonna make your team have to play more on their own triangle, and you're gonna make the enemy team not have to react to whatever you're doing. So okay. On a kill level, as a carry, if I play the game properly, they're having to react to the lanes I'm pushing and all that kind of shit. That's what I mean by, we're all part of the plan, but the way we affect the plan is different. So we have the MKB, a little bit awkward. I don't mind the atomization. You do need some sort of survivability. This is unfortunate.
So close.
Yeah, it's... the game's just pretty ugly at this point. So for the sake of helping us make use of this coaching session as much as possible, which one of these other 2 games did you want first?
So the very last one I sent you is another hub, and not to break your heart, but I picked TA last pick.
TA last pick itself is not the problem. It's So it can be the problem. Which one is it that you wanted? There's 3 here, I see.